All right, here we go. We're going through the Mongols today, and so we're putting up our Mongol week sign. That's why Isaac might make an appearance. So this is going to start with the number one thing you guys need to know about Mongols in terms of who they are is they are pastoralists and they are horse riders, and they're the best in the world. Okay. Pastoralist means basically this: they are nomadic, they can move around, and they live in tents. Okay. It's also going to make male and women roles more equal because let's face it, when you're out on the run in the prairie or whatever with all of your horses and sheep and cows and whatever else it is that we mean by that. By pastoralist, I mean somebody who would raise livestock. Got it? Somebody who would take care of cows or sheep or goats. But it allows you to be nomadic, and they're basically going to live in tents. And then men and women are going to be more equal, mostly because everybody just has to take care of the cows, sheep, and goats. There's not really like this overly like defined role of like, think a Muslim living in a city where it's like the women need to stay home and make food and the guys go out and learn at the Oma. No, everybody just tries to keep the sheep alive and tries to keep the horses alive and tries to keep the cows alive and so on and so forth. This sounds to us maybe like the Native American culture. And here's what you guys need to think about it. Just imagine, this is from a book I read talking about the Mongols and the making of the modern age. Got it? So I read a book on this, and he made this point. This would feel like, if I said the Mongols took over, it should feel like the Native Americans took over the United States, say in the era of the Civil War. Everyone got it there? Like that's how it would feel to everyone that heard it. Here are people, because the Native Americans by this point were relatively nomadic. And then there are many Native American groups that were pastoralist. But it also seems like very backwoods. Now, here's what they don't have. They can't read, by and large, or write, or any of those other things. They don't go to school. They go and work in the pastures and the prairies, and they go run around what's known as the steppe. So if you guys remember your graphic, you have China, and then there's the Gobi Desert, and it protects this area called the steppe, where basically it's a large flat plain, not like the Great Plains in the there, and they can just kind of roam around there and do their travel stuff. And that comes down to another point, is this is basically a chieftain type of political order, which seems very like odd. So, when we get introduced to Genghis Khan, who is Genghis Khan? He is the chief of the Mongols. And so they're very tribal in their associations, very family oriented, all this sort of stuff. And then I'm going to say it this way: they don't have I'm just going to say it. They have no like societal order that we might have. So now I get to tell you the story of Temujin, or Genghis Khan. Okay, so this is the starter of the Mongol Empire. And everything I say here is kind of under question, mostly because this is all coming from Mongols' history about themselves. Nobody really knows what he did growing up, but they wrote down kind of I'm just going to go their mythical history. But it also shows you a lot about Mongol society and its many issues that are going on with it. Okay, Temujin. I like the name just because it means wolf boy, which is like, to them would think like they're very much into the like animal gods and the sky gods, the nature gods, showing you just like compare that to Christianity or Islam that's going on in the day. This is what they're coming from. Eventually what they'll end up with is just kind of taking whatever religion they're there, and they actually kind of open up a bunch of discussions between all the religions, but we'll talk about that as we're keeping going there. He is born and he becomes an orphan because his mom was stolen. Yes. Okay. So explaining it here, his dad and his mom have him, and that's it. And then basically when he's like a 1 or 2 year old kid, something in the like really young stages of things. He is basically stolen. His mom is stolen out of a tent. Got it? Because there's no real order, there's no police, there's no anything. And basically, some other tribal leader who had more friends or whatever it may be, some other Mongol, basically steals his mom away. Got it? And so dad obviously has now got into like a revenge situation and spends a number of years trying to get mom back before he is killed in the process. Everyone got it there? So at this point, Temujin becomes a true like almost orphan. And so now he's kind of attached to some of the other tribes and hanging out, and he happens to make best friends with the son of the leader of the like tribal group that's in association. Eventually, that tribal group will kill the guys who took his mom. But that's going to happen years later. So he grows up kind of as an orphan in the like main chief's like location, and it grows up with a relative like importance and is seen as an excellent Mongol and as an excellent pastoral herder, hunter, all of these things that you're going to imagine. Okay, now a little bit about Mongol life. It's not that different than like say the Scythians, but one thing I just want to note here, just because it's kind of fascinating to me at a certain level, not because I'm into alcohol, but just like how do you make it, is that they drink milk alcohol. That's how their life is centered around, because like they don't have barley or wheat to make alcohol from. They have to make it from milk. And you're like, how do you do that? Like you don't preserve milk so that it ages into what do you call it? Oxidized, into an alcohol. So here's what you have to do. You put a bag of milk, leather bag of milk, on your saddle, and you just keep riding for days. And the milk just keeps shaking until it actually is able to oxidize and become alcoholic milk. Got it there? Alcoholic milk. Yes, I think it's called. If I remember right, it's kefir. But if I know that it has a different connotation today. So, anyhow, that's how based their society is, off of animals and then off of trading and off of stealing. Because these are the guys that would probably go in and probably raid the Silk Road guys over that sort of stuff. Okay. Now, growing up in this family, he is. His base, and with his he makes a basically with that boy becomes a blood brother, and just shows you the types of things that are going on, and like literally they cut themselves and share each other's blood and become family, because it's all like kind of this tribal mentality of like uniting equally with one another and like all these sorts of things. When he becomes a teenager, that relationship goes sour though. And what happens is Temujin gets married, and I think this is 13, 14 years old. And then he immediately, guess what, has his bride stolen. Got it? Because they're all doing this bride stealing. And so he tries to get his adopted family, I'll just put it that way, to help him to get his bride back. And his adopted family basically says, no, you're on your own. Got it? And that hacks him off. Okay? And at this point, he then declares, wait, no, that's not right. You guys should help me out with that. And then he begins to rally up a group of folks to oppose his blood brother and his dad. Everyone got the picture there? And at this point, the dad is the strongest tribal chieftain in the whole Mongol world. And so it's like him challenging there. So he rallies up his group of guys and gets massively defeated. Okay. And so then has to basically go in with like the 10 guys who are left and goes into hiding. Okay. Everyone got it there? He then slowly sits there and plots a way to get back at his blood brother and his father. It's like this mystical thing they do. They sit down and they eat a horse. So a little bit about their horses. The horses are small, but very durable. And then when you hit into the Mongol warriors, even then, they have more horses than guys. So they'll ride a horse, they'll eat a horse, and a horse will carry the stuff. Everyone got it there? And so that's how they kind of like function. But when they're doing the tribal stuff before they're like a massive empire, all he's doing is sitting there. He's doing something ritualistic so that the horse will empower him to become like, a great leader in the society. And does that make sense to everyone? It's almost ritualistic more so than it is some sort of like crazy survival or, eating horse or whatever. And so Genghis Khan then, or I'll say Temujin because he isn't Genghis Khan yet, then begins to rally another tribal chieftain who happens to pass away, leaving him a full authority. He's got to be a great leader, but mind you, can't read or write. Just imagine this. Rallies this other group and takes an army the third of the size of the one that's going to fight his dad and his brother. And this took a number of years. I'm just, moving through the story quickly. And he all of a sudden has now is able to defeat his blood brother and his dad. According to tradition, he part of the battle, and the reason why they were so able to win it with a smaller army is because his blood brother and him fought like, one-on-one, kind of like sort of idea. They basically got down and Temujin easily defeated him. And this sort of idea. So now he's got a third of the Mongols that he was leading. Half the Mongols are under were under the other chieftain's control, and now he just became the leader of the largest army in the world, almost by fluke and happenstance. Everyone got it there? And he's realizing he has a problem. How is he going to keep all these factions Mongols happy? And the answer is go invade other people. Got it? So in that process, guys, he kind of defeating and winning over all the Mongols, he kills and defeats he kills and defeats the guys that stole his mom and gets his mom back, who's very aged. Got it? And then he also gets back his first wife. Now, by this point, though, he's married 3 other wives. But this is important because that wife has a son that is Genghis Khan's son, or is it not Genghis Khan's son? And this is going to lead to a bit of family dynamics that aren't going well. I need to remember that son's name, and we have to look it up. It's going to lead to some infighting between the brothers. Got it? And so I should have up for you guys to look at his family tree. He's supposed to be related to like 1/6 of all the people in the world at this point, just because they all became kings. Everyone wanted to marry into their lines, and anyone from, say, all the way from India to China to even Russia is going to be like have intermixed into that family that's going to be quite large. And so everyone kind of picture it there in terms of the everyone kind of picture that there in terms of like he's built the Mongol Empire. Well, he has a couple advantages that are going on here, and these are mostly war advantages. Okay. Number 1, horses. And I already described this a little bit. And I'll just go horses, horses, horses. Like they have horses everywhere. And horses are expendable, and these are I'm just going to say the most durable horses, even though they're small and they're fast. Number 2, used to the cold. The reason the Mongols now have this big fighting force is they don't care if it's -20 outside. They can still ride. They don't care if the horse freezes. That probably just means they're going to eat more meat. They're just going to wear their super thick jackets, and they're going to go invade Kievan, Russia. Got it? I'm just giving you as an example here. Okay. Number 3, they figured out the crossbow. When you imagine a Mongol warrior, this is what you're supposed to imagine. You're supposed to see a horse riding right at you with the Mongol sideways, hiding himself so your arrows can't hit him. It might hit the horse. And then he's like underneath the horse shooting you with a crossbow. Everyone got it there? Number four, this is probably actually the most important, is they had a system of organization that was basically tribal system of organization that became a precursor to the modern army. So think in this time period, if you want to lead a war, I'll even go into like the 1700s, like George Washington, right, when he's like trying to raise an army, he literally needs to go like find guys. Like that's part of his job. Even Ulysses S. Grant in the Civil War, he has to go like find people that want to be part of an army. These guys have a natural system of organization based off of the tribes. And he basically set them up in systems of 10. He just put like, okay, I've got 10 tribes. Those 10 tribes are going to have 10 leaders. Those 10 leaders are going to have 10 sub-leaders. Those 10 sub-leaders are going to have 10 more sub-leaders under that. It just was very simple, but it created a system of organization that was very, very simple. It also is like a pyramid scheme. It also is how they're going to divvy up the loot. So everyone knew exactly what they were getting. Does that make sense? And all the like arguments about like who gets what, or should they get this, or should they get that, are basically naturally shared there. Because the big thing that Genghis Khan did was not turn the Mongols into warriors. It was that he took a group of warriors that were infighting amongst each other and organized them to be able to like go take over like the largest countries in the world at the time. So what do they need to do? They basically need to start invading. And at some point I'll show you guys, it'll probably be Monday because I don't really have it prepared at the moment. I'll show you the map of like just how the empire grew. And remember 1200s is kind of the year, but I think it really starts in the 60s. The Mongols just pick an area each year and they go and attack it. They choose to go later in the year because they want it to be cold and snow. Got it? They want it to be fighting when the other army doesn't want to fight. And then they also figured out how to scare everyone. Got it? Which they were very good at. So the first people they take over are the Jurchen, or the Northern Chinese. Okay? And this is probably the best group they could have taken over at the time. Number one, the whole like mandate of heaven system makes it seem like whoever has the best army has the best morals. And here's the other reason why it's a big deal. They have gunpowder. Okay? Not the whole rest of the world does not. If you want to shock and awe anyone, let's say in the Middle East at this point, man, shoot off a firework. You know what I mean? Just think you've never seen a firework before, and all of a sudden you see, you know, some big blast in the air or something that's going to go down. I don't think they use gunpowder really in their fighting. They use gunpowder to scare everybody. And so in the 1160s, they initially go to northern China, essentially take over northern China, and Manchuria. Also Manchuria, which we'll talk about later when we get back to China, is probably the most, it's between that and that like Dardanelles area are like the most like center of the world fought over places. If you look at the China map, that part of China that's running up next to Mongolia is that's going up, and then it connects to Korea. All of those things true is the location of Manchuria. It's it has oil, it has food, it has it's arable, and the people tend to be warriors. Then it's connected to Korea, which is relatively isolated by that mountain range that goes between Korea and Manchuria. But they're going to make friends with the Koreans. So the Koreans never let the Mongols invade because they keep paying them off. Got it there? And so that becomes kind of the thing, is they're willing to work with anyone who will just submit to them and pay them, because all they want is loot. That's the other thing about the army. It is a financial-based system. They want loot. They want stuff to come back and be able to engage it. Okay, so now explaining what happens. They go into the Jurchen. They basically take them over. They're like, yes, we took them over. They take all their stuff, but they also do something very wise here, and they kill none of the educated people. Instead, they say, would you like to die, or would you rather be a part of our empire here? And they're like, pyramid scheme, loot, stuff. Okay, then teach us how to make gunpowder. And they're like, okay. And then come be a part of our organized things. Now write, because again, the Chinese have writing and the Jurchen would have too. Now write and scare everyone about the fact that we're coming. And they're like, okay. And basically they took the Jurchen and made them part of the Mongolian Empire. They're just going to kind of dominate it. And what Genghis Khan is really good at doing is bringing people into the empire that are important. He kills a lot of people, don't get me wrong, but he knows who not to kill. And he knows who are the best scientists, and he knows who are the best gunpowder guys, and he knows who are the best writers of the time. One of those leaders is going to be a Muslim who's in this Jurchen area Chinese empire, and he is going to be the one that will turn Genghis Khan into a, by the way, Genghis Khan is the name that he takes. It's like the royal title. It's the name that he takes because to, you know, like basically scare everyone. And it's the word Khan, guys. All it is Caesar. He is trying to tap into the Roman idea, which everyone's like, wait, what? Like, he's nowhere near Rome. How does he even know about Rome? But it's this idea, guys, that they're tapping into. We want the great empire. I'm the chosen one. The Caesars really captured that. And so he's learning about that from a Muslim. And then he goes like, okay, I'm going to be Genghis Khan. I'm going to be Genghis Caesar. They can't say Caesar, so they say Khan instead. Just in the next, one of the next chapters, you'll hit the Russians, and they're going to be like the czars. What is that? It's a mess up of the word Caesar and the mess up of the word Khan. It's like them trying to tap into this like historical thing that I'm the empire that's going to control. And from there, they just keep spreading. And they avoid Song China because they're the most things, but they're going to go to Samarkand and Bukhara. So those are the, remember, the two important ones, Samarkand and Bukhara. Okay, these are two important points on the Silk Road. It's in Uzbekistan, where Mohila's from, in Donyar. And Samarkand these are the two of the most wealthy cities in the world at this time, and they're right along the Silk Road, and they're all about to exchange. So here's what happens. This is how the Mongols attack. Okay, in Samarkand, they go up and they send a tenth of their force, and they go and invade and attack, thus drawing out the army of Samarkand. Got it? And the Samarkands quickly chase them off. It's a total feint. And then all of a sudden they're now out and exposed away from their things. They have no horses. Then the full strength of the Mongol, the other 9/10 of it, come riding in as fast as they can with their bows and with their crossbows and their gunpowder, and then just basically ravage away the army. The part of the army that's left, because they don't have near the horsepower that they should, goes running into the Muslim the spires. So remember that all mosques are built with spires. Why? Because they're supposed to protect, the warriors are supposed to be able to protect the mosque and also hide out there. But they're thinking sanctuary. They're going like, hey, we're going to hide here and he'll have to negotiate with us so we can negotiate a treaty and hopefully nobody else dies. Genghis Khan rides up to it, basically goes, and this is the type of genius I'll say he was. Remember, he has this Muslim guy with him. He goes, you guys need to come out. You have been judged by Satan. I'm basically the judgment of God upon you. Sticks it into the mosque and says, it's because you guys weren't following your own sins. Just think about this for a moment. And so he gives this over through intermediaries, and these guys are just sitting there going like, nope, we're defending our mosque. We're going to stay here. Do not stay in the mosque. You will be judged with the fires of hell. I mean, literally, that's the type of thing he says and the type of propaganda he's putting out. And then they're like, no, we refuse. If you don't, we will scourge the entire city. And so finally, they don't give in. And so Genghis Khan, it's that night, goes into the city. It's supposed to be think about this. It's supposed to be the first time in his entire life that he spent the night inside of a built building. Remember, got it there? He had spent his entire life in tents and then had been nomadic. And he's looking at the city. He has no value for it. Zero. He says zero reason for it to even exist. And he sits there and he's like, His main god is the sky god, the mandate from heaven, the sky god. And he's like, God can't be contained in buildings. This is dumb. And he basically just torches the entire mosque and the entire spires and all the guys just inside of it. And has no respect for the Muslim religion whatsoever, and basically looks at them and goes, I'm your judgment. Your God is judging you. You guys are like completely wrong. And just says, if this is what's going to happen. So that Samarkand, as he moves further west to Bukhara, he shows up and they're like, hi, Scorch from God, let's make a deal. Got it? And basically just is able to take over the town. Now, what does he want? He doesn't want buildings. He doesn't want to mess up all the people's lives. He doesn't want to kill everyone. He wants their loot. And so he takes all their stuff and he goes home. And then he goes back to Mongolia, and now they're passing out all of the wealth, and all the wealth is becoming in the center of Mongolia that has no buildings. Like, just think all of the silk in the world and all of the gold in the world and all the money and all the stuff is following this system of organization back to guys who are living in tents, who are getting larger and larger sets of finance and wealth. And it's supposed to be at this point in time that think the wealth of the world is basically centered in Mongolia with guys who have no idea, like are just like sitting in it, like Uncle Scrooge, like, swimming in his money. Does that make sense? And all the things that are going on there. And the wealth, guys, will not leave for that century. This place becomes the wealthiest, one of the most wealthiest empires in history. I even in terms of like theater state. Now, as they're doing this religious thing, Samarkand and Bukhara are Muslim, right? So the Mongols are kind of like, leave a regional director in there, and the regional director's like, what do you guys want? And they're like, well, we feel like we need a Muslim ruler. And they're like, what do you have to do to become a Muslim? Well, you have to say Allah is God. Or sorry, you have to say that right? Allah is God and Muhammad is his prophet. They're like, cool. Allah is God, Muhammad is a prophet. And so one of the things that goes out is they're more religious syncretists and religious opportunists. Does that make sense? They don't care what religion they are. So let's go religious sync and religious opportunists. And so wherever they go, opportunist, can I spell that? Wherever they go, they end up just like over and over again, just melding into the religion. And so they'll add it to different things. And I'll talk about Kublai Khan's court probably next time. But it creates this like massive discussion that's going on between these guys and between all the religions at the time period, because no one can quite figure out what the Mongol leaders actually are. Everyone kind of got it there? Because they'll just become Muslim. And all of a sudden, next time they come by with the raiders or whatever, the Mongols themselves, they'll come back here and be like, back to Samarkand and be like, what religion are you now? Muslim. Why? They follow me better if I'm Muslim. Like that's the basic idea. There's no real idealism to it, except that it's easier to rule. Okay. How much time do I have left? I need to get to the family to explain what is going on there. That's not right. 10:39. So I have 9 minutes. Okay. He expands all the way in Genghis Khan's lifetime. He basically expands into the Middle East, doesn't get the whole Middle East, and then he starts expanding into Russia. And then very suddenly, he can't make it on one of the trips, and he's gone and dies. Got it? He had no plan of succession. Zero. Got it? So what do? Well, they get all the tribal chiefs together. Okay? And he basically has 4 sons. Okay? He probably had more, but these are the 4 that matter. Okay? Number 1, I already talked about him a little bit, is the son from his first wife. And he has been in all the battles, fighting with him the whole way, capturing the Genghis Khan. But he has this problem is, his rep is he's the illegitimate child. Because nobody knows if he's actually Genghis Khan's son's Genghis Khan's son or not. The second son, okay, is from his more normal wives, like I think it's considered his queen wife or whatever, who probably should be the leader and has been fighting as a general in the army. And is like all this sort of stuff. And what they do is they get the tribes together and they fight about this. Then you have the third son, okay? And he's a drunk, okay? And then there's the fourth son, who is a young soldier. He's really not old enough. Got it? And so he needs to kind of prove himself, sort of idea. So basically, these two guys are fighting, and nobody knows who to pick. And so Genghis Khan is gone. He gave no direction. This guy's going, I'm the oldest son. I should be the leader of the entire tribe. You should hand it all over to me. Got it? He's going, you're an illegitimate son. I'm the oldest son. I'm of the queen mother. You should basically be going with me. He's drunk. Okay? So all the tribes get together, and this is pretty normal in like tribal chieftains, and they basically make a vote. And they're like, who should lead the Mongol Empire? And their answer is the drunk. Ogode. Okay, everyone got it there. Because if they chose either one of these two, you'd have had a massive civil war on your hands. So they chose, we feel like he's the best guy to do this. And he's like, I don't want to do this. I want to just like stay home and, be a... Anyhow, Ogode is got to be one of the worst like things sort of idea. And so here's what happens. He gets mad and he leaves and basically starts his own government. And it becomes known as the Central Khanate. Okay? And here's what happens. He goes out there and fights, and he basically goes back to Samarkand and Bukhara, take them over. He goes, I'm the Mongol in charge here. He ignores the rest of the Mongols, takes his army goes with him, and then he tries to expand downward into Afghanistan. Okay? So, first place the Mongols are defeated is Afghanistan. And this is where he'll die. So basically right after this time period, I'll say within the next few years, as he just goes, I'm going to settle in Central Khanate. He's going to center himself in Samarkand. But he keeps trying to expand with his army, which is significant. And he basically gets stuck in Afghanistan. Now, explaining a little bit about Afghanistan, which plays way too much of an important role in history as backwoods as it is. Basically, you might as well call it the Badlands. If you guys have ever been to Badlands in South Dakota, I imagine that's how it is. But you can't cross it with horses. It's massive valleys with massive cliffs with caves everywhere. Got it? So you're not going to be fighting like an open warfare where you charge your horses at some guys. You're basically got people shooting bow and arrows out of caves or throwing gunpowder bombs, because this is the stage where you're at this sort of stuff. So it's all kind of this like unorganized guerrilla warfare, and then anyone can hide in any cave and like never get caught. You can kind of, kill someone and then go run into a cave and nobody knows where you're at. You got it? That is as true back then as it is when like the Americans are looking for Osama bin Laden in the year after 2001. Everyone got it there? It is nearly impossible for anyone to actually take over Afghanistan. Got it? And this is as true back then as it was there. This also is a protection against India, and India is never directly taken over by the Mongols. Got it? So India, and this will come in the next chapter, in chapter 13, is going to end up preserved initially from the Mongol invasions. We're essay next week. That's right. Okay. This guy gets mad, gets a part of the next raid, and basically somehow ends up dying. I think he ends up having a death wish. Ogode, because he's a drunk, will die within 10 years. So that leaves this son, who's a young soldier trying to kill himself, who also will die young. Which leaves this really random thing that happens in this Mongol history really right after Genghis Khan, is who's left? All the women. So basically the court of Genghis Khan becomes all the women. Now, because they're Mongols and they're not Chinese, anti-Empress Wu, they have the authority of the Khans with now no male authority. They basically, for about 10 years, get to rule the entire Mongol Empire. And so you have women all of a sudden ruling. But what they really do is they pick the best of, and this is probably actually what they did well, they're going to pick the best leaders to separate out all of the Khanates, okay? And so what's going to end, and probably a good point to end here, is that there are going to be 4 Khanates. The Golden Horde, which is basically going to be Russia, what you guys would think is Russia, okay? And even our concept of what is Russia is coming back to the Golden Horde, okay? And that's going to be ruled by a Russian Orthodox Mongol. I'll get you guys the names of all these guys. The one that is most famous is the Yuan Empire, is going to be ruled by Kublai Khan. And so the 2 guys, like if you're going to write an essay that you really need to know, you don't need to know about Okoday the drunk. But Kublai Khan is going to be there, and he's going to become religiously syncretistic and Confucian. He literally is going to walk into China, go, I have the mandate of heaven, and they're like, yes, you do. We don't want to fight you. Got it? Then you're going to have the Great Khanate, or the Il Khan, which is basically the entire Middle East. And that'll be ruled by a Muslim. Everyone kind of get the picture of what they're doing here? And then finally, you have over here, the Central Khanate still continues to exist. It's basically around Samarkand and Bukhara, and it will also be Muslim. Okay? Well, eventually, they're going to just end up in religious wars, and they're going to be like, hey, you're Russian Orthodox. I don't like you. Even though you're like my second cousin, I'm going to attack you. You get the idea? And that's what's going to lead to the downfall. But I'll leave it here as you guys are sitting there, because I basically just want to go through the story of Genghis Khan today and kind of like, where did this empire come from? Summarizing the point, okay, be a little bit odd at the fact that people who can't read and write ended up taking over the world. I think that piece is rather fascinating. Yeah, the reasons they were able to do that is like a perfect storm of a mass amount of horses, a system that was organized, even though it's tribal, right? And also because of, I'm leaving out just their ability to take empires and like just steal their technology and their wisdom. So when I'm saying it, there is the writing from China, even the block type from China, and also the gunpowder are going to like basically allow them to take over. It's not really that it was all horses or something. All right, I need to stop there.